Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Horror Vlog. It's been a while since we've had a horror vlog, so I'm a little rusty at this again, but today is a special horror vlog for you guys. It is called Classic Monster Week, where we're going to be talking about the classic 1940s horror movie monsters. Like the werewolf, for instance. Like the mummy. And a vampire. I know Elvira's not a vampire, but this is the closest thing I could find. Graham, thanks for joining. Jason, as you can see, has a pot of goodies for us for our movie review, but we're going to sit Jason over here for now. Okay? So, get my laptop. We're going to get started. I could scroll to the top. Alright. What really started people on the horror stuff? Like, when you think back to when horror movies originated, you started pretty much with the horror classic figures like the Mummy and the Werewolf and Dracula. And we all grew up with that. Like, all the older people grew up with those, and it has shaped the horror movie industries. They're even in video games. Recently, one of the newest video games that came out is Vampire, which is about a vampire. And then you, of course, you have your werewolf movies and so on and so forth, and werewolf games. But do you guys still feel love for those classic characters? Now, I've always been a huge fan of the werewolf, the lycanthrope, if you will. Werewolves, to me, always was the scariest of the horror movie monsters. Some would argue and say that, like, vampires were because of their hypnotizing abilities. Some would say the mummy was a terrifying. Oh, thank you. I was going to wear my scarecrow one, but I can't seem to find it. But the werewolf, I think, is more terrifying than the mummy, because the mummy, people have presumed to be able to eat people's brains out of their nose, which is kind of impossible. Well, not really impossible, I don't guess. But anyway, I personally think that werewolf movies are the scariest of the movie monsters. And it's actually the longest like myth, I would guess you could say, like legend. It dates back so many centuries. It's one of the longest, like, talked about monster, I guess you could say. But what do you guys feel? Do you guys feel like werewolves are the scariest amongst them? Or do you feel like vampires? We could throw in Frankenstein as well, because he's a classic horror monster. But yeah, I always grew up watching them, whether it be in Scooby Doo cartoons and stuff like that. They've always had like these classic horror monsters in a lot of movies and cartoons and so on and so forth. But me personally, it's always been the werewolf. Um, and what do we like about werewolves? Us werewolf fans. And don't you be saying, oh, I love Jacob from Twilight. No, keep that garbage out of this. What we're going to be discussing is, why do we like werewolf movies? And I've kind of noticed that in other horror movies, you typically, like, when you're watching a horror movie and somebody in that movie is watching, or a relative of theirs is watching a scary movie, it's always some kind of werewolf. on there. And I think that's kind of interesting. Like, why did they choose to have werewolf stuff in the background as their choice of movie? Because I just think that werewolves are like the best of the monsters myself. But the reason why I like the werewolf movies, one of the biggest reasons I like them is because of the transformation. Where the werewolf is like, oh, and then he turns into the wolf. Or takes a shit, whichever. But I always thought that the transformations in werewolf-like movies were always the coolest. Just seeing the people transform, body disfigured, breaking into this wolf-like creature. And I always like the whole like moonlight kind of thing where the moonlight is what triggers them, and the only way you can kill a werewolf is through a silver bullet. So the way to kill them and stop them are very limited unless you happen to have a silver bullet. But I think that's the biggest reason why I like werewolf movies personally. But what about you guys? What do you guys like the most out of werewolf movies? Hmm? Do you like the transformation like I do? Do you like the endings, like how they come about stopping them? Do you like the whole legendary tale of it? What's your favorite part about werewolf movies? I'm going to continue on by telling you guys my top 5 favorite werewolf transformation. Number 5 goes to the Wolfman. Now, the Wolfman was a 1940s movie, and you can argue and say that it was not really a transformation because all we really saw was the guy's feet transform. And then after he got up, then you saw his whole wolf form. But it was the 1940s, and graphics at that time like weren't the best. That's why the movie's in black and white and everything like that. So I thought it was really interesting how they were able to fade into him just slowly growing and changing his feet. I think that that was kind of interesting. Number 4, Wolf Cop. And the reason why, which I'm going to show you that movie right here, Wolf Cop, which the reason why I pick it as a top 5 favorite transformation is because it's just so gory and so weird. And I like how they paid super close attention to the first time he transformed, then the rest of the time it's kind of like sped into it. But the first time he does it, he was taking a piss in a urinal, and like his dick was the first thing to transform. It like bursted open to a wolf penis, and just like the whole thing, like after that he was like dripping, like his skin was melting off of his body and so on and so forth. So I thought that that transformation was pretty brutal, but also it was kind of cool in the same sense. There's a lot of movies where werewolf... Oh, hey, Katie. What's up? There's a lot of sense where werewolf movies, they're kind of just like, and then they're done. You know what I mean? But I feel like if you're going to do a transformation, the slower you do it, the better you do it. You know what I'm saying? Nah, I mean, for example, number 3, Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps is a witch/wolf related movie, which witches and wolves are kind of the same because they dwell into the whole magic and transformation kind of thing. But Ginger Snaps was a very slow progressing transformation. Actually, it pretty much took the whole movie. From small scenes like her growing hair in places, then she had a nail coming out of the side of her leg, and then just slowly, day by day, something is changing, and it gets to the point where her face starts looking like an animal's. It's her like attitude's changing, everything. But she does have a ultimate transformation scene, which was badass. But I kind of liked how it was like a day by day thing. Slowly, slowly, stuff began to like change with her and stuff like that. So I thought that was good. My number two favorite transformation is The Howling, which I've got in Jason's pot of goodies. This is a double pack movie, but we're going to be talking about The Howling there. The Howling's transformation was just beautifully done. It was not really CGI. It was actually like really made. I think it was so creepy how he reached his finger up inside of him and ripped out the bullet that shot him in the head, and then his face starts bubbling, like his skin starts like bubbling, and he's like pulsing and stuff as he's transforming, and the end result is just terrifying. But what makes it more terrifying is that she throws the acid in his face, so part of his werewolf face is like melted and it's got to the bone and all that stuff. So I think that the Howling's transformation is one of the greatest transformations ever. But what's my number one? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The American Werewolf in London. Nothing, and I repeat, nothing will ever beat that transformation. The guy was just naked, he was screaming in pain, and it starts with his hand just forming and breaking, and like, oh my god, it is so slow, this process, and as you're watching it, you yourself are feeling so like uncomfortable watching this, and it just takes forever. Yeah, that movie is amazing. Both all the movies that I've listed actually are pretty like amazing, but that transformation is just breathtaking. There's no CGI to it. It does have computer animated, like they do stuff with the computer where they time lapse things. They're little, not time lapse. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, but still, it was really slow, really painful to watch. But yeah, those are my top 5 favorite transformations. I absolutely love the transformations in those. There are several other werewolf movie transformations that probably could have made the list. And if you want to shout out some of your favorite transformations, go right ahead. Feel free. But right now, I'm going to throw you guys another top list. This is my top 10 favorite werewolf movies. Number 10, we got Goosebumps. People seem to forget this one. Goosebumps, Werewolf of Fever Swamp. For some reason, I was wanting to call it like Wolfskin, but I knew it weren't that one. They do have one called Wolfskin, but Werewolf of Fever Swamp is probably, in my opinion, the scariest Goosebumps book / movie in existence. The episode, when I was a kid, it really terrified me. I don't know what it was in specific, but I'm pretty sure it could have been that ending factor where the boy howled at the moon at the end or whatever, but I just know that when I was a kid, I was terrified of that movie. Number 9, it's actually a 2014 movie that not many people know even exists. It's a werewolf movie called Where, W-E-R, and it's written by the same people that did Paranormal Activity, Insidious, and all of that. It's about these people go camping in the woods and they get slaughtered by this animal, and these people discovered this man there at the crime scene and arrested him because he's this big man. He's got like animal-like qualities to him, and he admits to killing them. So they decide to do tests, and they think that he's got some kind of disease that makes him grow hair like rapidly and stuff like that. Well, it turns out he's a werewolf, and it's like a modern day what if we really discovered someone who was a werewolf, like documentary style film and everything like that. It's a pretty intense looking movie. Number 8 is the Underworld movies. Underworld movies are so freaking good. I love them, and I still have yet to see that last newest one that just came out. But I do really love the Underworld movies. Number 7, we've got a movie called Dog Soldiers, which it really wasn't that great of a movie, but I like the whole action packed quality of it, where like the soldiers and stuff are fighting back and all that stuff. I just feel like it was a more like edgier, see what's going to happen, action packed wolf movie. Number 6 goes to the classic Wolfman, because you always gotta be, you always have to love the classics. But specifically, I just really love the story to it. And I guess I'm a sucker for old classic horror movies. So. Number 5 goes to Stephen King's The Bullet, or Silver Bullet, or Cycle of the Werewolf, whichever one you want to call it. But Stephen King, that movie and book was really good. I thought it was unique that he decided to have the preacher, the main symbol of the town, basically be the werewolf. And I just like how they did it at the end, where he melted the thing, melted that, and created a silver bullet. So I thought that was really unique. Number 4, Ginger Snaps. I've already discussed the transformation. Ginger Snaps is just a good movie. If you haven't seen it, it's disturbing, it's graphic, but otherwise, it's amazing. I'm not a big fan of Ginger Snaps 2, though. I don't know why. I never quite liked the second one. Which I've only watched it one time, so I might have to give it another chance. Number 3 goes to The Howling, of course. It was excellent. I've never seen any of the sequels of The Howling, which I'm pretty sure they might not be as good. So, number 2 is going to throw you guys off of a loop. It's Teen Wolf. It's not really classified as horror or anything like that, but I was always a fan of the Teen Wolf movie. I thought it was like funny. I thought it was fun to watch, and it was just an interesting story. Unrealistic, but it was interesting. And of course, number 1, An American Werewolf in London. Durr. But if I missed anything that you guys feel like is one of your favorites, let me know in the comment section below. And also, dabba dabba. Also, comment what your number 1 favorite wolf movie is. Because I am curious to know if everyone in the world thinks that the one... I just noticed that they fixed these up a little bit differently. Weird. But yeah, I want to know what you guys' number 1 is. And now we're going to get into our first movie review of the day, which is Wolf Cop. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Jacob, why aren't you doing a review on the classic Wolfman? I'm going to do another episode of this next week. Exactly 1 week from today is going to be part 2 of the horror classic monster thing. So I'm going to interloop the horror vlogs, and instead of it being 2 weeks apart, I'm going to make it 1 week. But for now, I'm going to do a review on Wolf Cop, because not many people, I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie. But I wanted to kind of give it a shout out and give it its due. It's a B-rated comedy-like movie where this cop in this town, he's like a piece of crap cop that really just don't care. He lets people get away with certain crimes and stuff like that because he just doesn't seem to care. He's always late for work, so he's just one of those kind of laid back, would rather drink his life away kind of people. So anyway, he goes to this bar where he has a crush on the waitress that serves him the beers, and he's telling her about his day and stuff at work and all that, and flirting with her and stuff like that. And He ends up. Oh, how did it go again? Oh man, how did he? Oh, he was kidnapped in the woods. He kind of blacked out, and when he woke up, he saw three figures, and it had this ritual-like thing where this guy hung upside down, and he was cut open, and he was like the cop guy was taped to a table, and apparently that ritual is what turned him into a werewolf. And I don't really want to spoil too much for you, but it was a really good comedy, and surprisingly, it's actually a pretty decent movie. When I first borrowed this from my friend El Manuel, I was thinking, oh my god, this ain't going to be good at all. I'm just going to waste my time. But it's actually quite funny, really unique. It's kind of got like a superhero comic book kind of feel to it. And one of the funny things is that when he's in wolf form, whenever he drinks like beer or alcohol, it kind of like fuels him and gives him more strength and more power. So that's kind of funny. But I'm not going to give away any of the plot twists, and I'm not going to give away anything like that. All I'm going to say is it actually surprised me of how good it is, and they are making Wolf Cop 2. I think it either is already out or is coming out very soon. But I'm going to be getting Wolf Cop 2. I may not buy them because I didn't really like love it as much as to buy it. But as for like watching it a couple of times, yeah, I would definitely. So what would I rate this movie? I would give this movie about a 7 out of 10, simply because it's not that perfect of a movie, but it is just good enough to where you liked it. You know what I'm saying? Where I know I keep saying that a lot in this video for some reason. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, if you haven't seen Wolf Cop, go out and watch it. It is worth watching. I wouldn't buy it. I would like rent it, or unless you can find it cheap, like $5 or something like that, then yeah, it's worth getting. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty good. Now, for my one of the first actual questions I can ask you on this, would you guys rather be a werewolf or a vampire? And, like, I'm not going to give you shit if you want to be a vampire, because ever since Twilight came out, it's kind of like, sucker punch the vampires in the face. Like, whenever someone says, hey, do you want to be a vampire? They immediately think of Edward, and they're like, no, vampires are gay. You know what I mean? I keep saying that. I don't know why. It's like I've never said it before up until this episode. But which one would you guys rather be? Me personally, I think I'd rather be a vampire. Not be, here I was talking about how wolves were my favorite and all that stuff. But think about it. The transformation into a werewolf is not in your control. Unless you're like one of the lucky werewolves in some of those movies where you can transform at will. But, like in The Howling. Like in The Howling, you can the people in that colony at the end, they were able to transform at will. So, but I think that if I didn't have that choice, where it was like, I went to go outside to pick up something out of my car, and I just look up and I'm like, oh fuck, and then transform into the wolf, and then you don't have no memories, don't know nothing. I think that would kind of suck. But the number one thing is the pain. Like, imagine the pain of your body just breaking and morphing, you know what I mean? So I think that being a vampire, I mean, if you got bit by a vampire, yeah, you're going to go through a lot of pain right then and there. But when you're a vampire, that's it. I mean, you do what you want. You have the abilities. Yeah, you have to feed on blood, but YOLO. What do you guys think? Another question. Werewolves and vampires. What's the deal with them being in the same movies? Like, I don't remember ever seeing this friendship bond between wolves and vampires on anything. Like, as far back as I remember, the first time I ever saw a crossover event was in the Scooby Doo cartoon, which also had the Mummy, also had Frankenstein, also had all of that. But the first movie I've ever seen that had them both intertwined, I believe it was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I could be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure that's the one that had both of them in it. And I don't know, I mean, it was cool. That movie was really cool how they did it. And then ever since, I've noticed that werewolves and vampires have kind of had this trend where they're, in the same universe, same movies and stuff like that. I hear my cat Link. He's like, "Well, let me in, damn you!" Come on in, Linkers. Come on in. I'm in the middle of a video. I know you don't give a shit, little bastard. But, yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Do you guys feel like there should be more vampire and, like, werewolf stuff in movies together like that? Or do you feel like they should just keep them separate? Go on up there, Link. But, as a crossover, as for me saying, this is my idea for their crossovers, I decided to put together a top 5 vampire and werewolf game list. Number 5 goes to Castlevania Lord of Shadows. Link is a vampire as well. Another one I forgot to mention was Sleepwalkers. But Castlevania Lord of Shadows is a older vampire game. It was really well known, and there's like a million Castlevania games. Maybe not that many, but still. Number 4 goes to The Order 1886, which surprisingly was an excellent game. It's a werewolf game, or a lycanthrope, the way they tell them. But The Order 1886 was just a beautifully done game, based in 1886, of course, in London, and it was really cool how they did that game. Number 3 goes to a game called Dark. It's a vampire game where you play as this vampire, and you're basically just trying to get by. Is all it is, really. But you get different powers, like you can go into other animals spiritually. You have to feed and all that kind of stuff. I hear my brother's here. Number 2, Wolf Among Us. Wolf's Fungus. Wolf Among Us is a werewolf, very popular Telltale game, which you play as a character who's a werewolf. And it is one of the most popular games there ever is. And I've never personally played it, but everyone that I've talked to that did play it said it was excellent. Number 1 goes to Vampire, which is the newest vampire game that just came out last month. And you play as this vampire, and you have every decision that you make in the game decides how the game outcome is, and all of that good stuff. But yeah, those are just the top 5 real quick, crossover vampire werewolf kind of thing. Let's see. Next up on our little list, we're going to do a movie review on Dracula Untold. Dracula Untold is one of the greatest movies I have ever watched. At first, I was very skeptical about this movie. I've seen so many other Dracula movies, and hold on, Jeremy's screaming. I don't know if you guys can hear. I'm doing a video. Can you keep it down? Alright. Dracula Untold is a vampire Well, he doesn't start out as a vampire. He's like a king, and everything is going to shit. This war is about to happen, and he isn't that powerful. And apparently, his character is like Vlad the Impaler. Well, he meets this very old vampire in a cave who tells him that he can give him the power he needs to protect his family and all of that stuff. So, and I'm trying not to give away too much. That's why I'm kind of chopping screwing some of the story. But he ends up, the war kind of happens, and it ends up to where he takes the vampire on his offer. And when he does turn into the vampire, he becomes a total badass. But this movie is chock full of action. I absolutely love this movie. So please, if you have not seen Dracula Untold, please watch it. I would give this movie an 11 out of 10. And I hope and pray to God that there's another one. Alright, my question next is, should they continue to be making monster movies? Do you guys think that they should, which I think I've already asked that, like, do you think they should continue on with making werewolf movies and making vampire movies? Or do you guys think that they should invent something completely new? And then also, follow-up question, what are some of the monsters that are in today's movies that you guys would like to be considered a classic horror monster? For example, the monsters in A Quiet Place. Would you like to see them become more than just what they were in that movie? And another great example, Cloverfield. Would you like to see those aliens and stuff become a classic horror monster? But what kind of classic horror monster in today's time would you guys like to see become a horror classic, like in the future? And my final movie review for the vlog, The Howling. I love that episode of Goosebumps where her aunt and uncle, it went away, where her aunt and uncle are werewolves. That one's werewolf skin. Quiet Place is a good choice, man. Yeah, Quiet Place, I felt like the monsters in that could expand more and be used as a classic horror movie monster. Trying to think of some more. Mostly paranormal stuff is all around, but I do think that A Quiet Place was a really good choice. But I'm going to be doing the review on The Howling. The Howling, what surprisingly have never seen this movie up until today. I watched that movie for the first time today, and it was incredible, actually. It was cheesy. The story was pretty good, but all in all, just the transformation of when the guy's face was bubbling and like when she put the acid in his face, that combination just made that guy's werewolf look like absolutely intense. And I just feel like it was one of the best transformations I've ever seen. But the story goes, you get this main girl who's a reporter. Her name's Karen. She's a reporter, and she's trying to catch a known rapist and killer. So she sets up this dangerous meeting where she meets him in this like photo booth room or something like that, in like a magazine room. And he shows her like a video of a woman being raped, and then she turns around and sees him and screams, and then the cop shoots him, presumably dead. Well, after that, she kind of has problems sleeping. So the doctor recommends her to go to this colony as like a getaway, her and her husband, and just kind of chill. Well, when they get there, the town's nymphomaniac decides to start flirting with the husband, and when he doesn't, go with her, she scratches him, which is either she scratched him or a werewolf-like creature scratched him. Well, through the movie, he starts like changing his attitude, changing things, And then he ends up actually having sex with that woman, which they both turn to vampires, to werewolves as they're doing the deed. And just it continues on through there, and it has a big plot twist ending. I'd like to tell you a little bit about it, but in case of someone, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it anyway. Sorry, guys, if you have not seen it, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil The Howling because it's been out for a long time. But I love the part, the guy's bubbling face. She throws the acid in him. I love the part how at the very end when her and the cop guy kill a bunch of the people of the town and burn the whole thing down. What's up, Olsen Life? Is that Olsen Life? Yeah, Olsen Life, what's up? You like werewolves or vampires? Because that's pretty much been the topic for the past few minutes. But I love how at the end where they go back to the news studio to warn people that vampires, goddammit, that werewolves exist, and she like turns into a wolf herself, and the cop guy shoots her, and then just kind of like ends around that era. I did leave a little bit of mystery for you guys if you guys want to see it, but yeah, everyone's picking vampires. Fuck werewolves, apparently. No, I'm just kidding. I like werewolves, but if I was to choose between which one I wanted to be, which I already said in the video, I would rather be a vampire because it's less painful. You have seen Nosferatu. I have. But mostly I've been talking about werewolves in this edition. Next, this coming Wednesday, I'm going to do part 2 of the monster or classic horror monster week. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about vampires that week. But yeah, I have seen Nosferatu. Which, the black and white with that movie really worked. And it made the monster just pop out. But yeah, that was my review of The Howling. I would give it probably a 9 out of 10. Just because the story isn't like that great. But it's a 1980s... no CGI, like barely CGI. And I just think it was a really good movie. Now, I've never seen, like I said, I've never seen the rest of the whole Howling movies, like the 30 movies that they have for it. But, so if you guys want to let me know if any of them's good or worth watching, then I'll try to find them and watch them. But that is our horror vlog for now. I know it's short and sweet, but I'm going to be doing it again this coming Wednesday. It's going to be same thing, Monster Week, and I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about vampires, and then I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Frankenstein and maybe the Mummy. So, make sure to look out for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry for so many interruptions, and I'm sorry that it didn't seem like it was that perfect of a video, but YOLO. Thank you for joining Olsen Life. Thank you for joining my beautiful bride-to-be, Alexis. And thank you, Hemingway J, for joining. Katie, Graham, and I think that was basically it. Yep. But thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. If you haven't seen or just now tuning in, thank you, and comment below and let me know what you think. I'm Z3KO Trinity. Deuce.